Hey guys, welcome to the Homestead. It's been a few months and we have our grape juice here. It's ready to be racked. These are our Chamberson grapes that we harvested this year. There's a vineyard not far from where we live and they have about 90 acres. And they have different varieties of grapes, and I try to go for the grapes that are more for dry wines because I like dry wines. They have a really good Norton variety there, and then they have the Chamberson. It's been around quite a while, but it's a varietal hybrid that has been developed for growing in the Midwest. It can handle the really hot, humid temperatures of the Midwest in the summertime. It can also handle the really cold temperatures in the wintertime. More in the Missouri growing regions around St. Genevieve and all that stuff, but it grows really well here as well. We harvested about 6 5-gallon buckets of Chamberson grapes, and then we went ahead and juiced those down, and they've been fermenting. And a lot of the materials that float around in the juice have settled to the bottom, and so now it's time for racking. And racking, all that is simply taking a tube and then basically siphoning off the juice and putting it into another container and then rinsing this container, getting rid of all of the stuff that's settled at the bottom and then putting it in the container again. And then this is when we begin our oaking process. And so I have these white oak staves. This is just white oak, and I have basically charred the oak, and then these will go into the wine and give it that oaky flavor that you probably are familiar with if you're used to wines that have been aged for long periods of time in oak barrels. This will do the same, give it the same effect without putting it inside of a pricey oak barrel. And so I have a number of these staves that we've cut up and charred, and they're going to go inside the wine. Okay, just so you know, I've been making wine now since we moved on the homestead, and the first wine we ever made was persimmon wine. Loved that wine. I still have 1 bottle left in the wine cellar. So, this one so far, it looks a lot darker on camera than it does in my glass. This is, so just right off, this is not ready for drinking. It so far it seems okay. It has this sort of nuttiness that I've never experienced with a wine before. And I can definitely smell the alcohol in there. It's a new wine. You can obviously tell it's a new wine. It has not aged at all. So it's going to be about 2 years before you can really it settles down. All the tartness from the newness wears off. So a new wine, it'll be very tart. An old wine will be much more mellow. It still has a lot of acidity. It makes your mouth water just thinking about taking a drink of it. That's what acidity does. It makes your mouth water. It's like a lemon. Lemon has lots of acidity, so when you think of a lemon, automatically your mouth starts to water, and that's what this does. It's got that newness, that tartness, high acidity, and it's got this nuttiness that I'm not familiar with in a wine before, usually. It's got other characteristics of fruits and stuff like that as well. Interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this matures over time, but I think it'll be one that we enjoy. It's I've heard people say this is close to a Pinot Noir. So a couple things that we do with our winemaking. The biggest thing you have to remember when making wine is that it needs to be clean. Everything the wine is going to come into contact with has to be clean. And there will be a lot of people out there on YouTube land who will use all these chemicals to clean their stuff. Like this last time, I didn't use any chemicals. The only chemical I will ever use is when bottling. I will go ahead and use some Star Sands to wash my bottles with. Other than that, during the entire process, the only thing I do to clean is boiling water. You have to be careful because you're dealing with glass, like the glass carboys. You have to slowly warm up that carboy with warmer water before you get the boiling water onto it inside of it to clean it. The boiling water will disinfect everything. They didn't have chemicals 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. They've been making wine since forever. How did they make it? Some people made good wine, some people made bad wine, just like today. But the one way you could always make sure everything was clean and there would be no spoilage over time, because wine is a chore of love. It's a labor of love, and it takes time and patience for wine. If you do not know patience, you can start learning how to make wine and you will learn patience. But with time can come a lot of things that get in and mess everything up. Bacteria and all kinds of stuff. So what you do is that you need to make sure everything your wine touches, before it touches that wine, it touches boiling water first, or very hot water. Hot water's fine. Hot water will kill all the germs on the surface level of anything that contacts. That's your number one thing you need to understand. I always like to point out to people, because I come from a Baptist background, and here I am drinking wine. You can taste, it's like it's a new wine, and so there's definitely that yeasty, flavor going on there, and that will settle down again over time. And before I bottle, I'll filter everything out, so you'll get rid of that yeasty taste. There's a lot with a wine that has just come off a carboy with a racking. There's going to be that yeasty that flavor. No one likes that, but it goes away with time and racking, and with filtering at the end. Anyway, I always tell people, because I come from a Baptist background, when you harvested grapes in the fall, because grapes are harvested in the late summer and fall, you only had two options. You either fermented it into alcohol to preserve your harvest, or it went into raisins. That was your only two options. They didn't have, vacuum packaging. They didn't have refrigeration. They didn't have pasteurization. Pasteurization wasn't invented until the 1800s by a guy named Thomas Bramwell Welch. Thomas Welch, during the time of the temperance movement, where this whole idea got started that if you drank alcohol, you beat your wives or your children or whatever. That's something that the Baptists clung onto and held onto for dear life, and they still hold onto it today. No, all wine was alcoholic, because when you squeeze the juice out of the grape, you got about, 72 hours before it starts to go bad. So there was only one way to preserve it. The preservative called alcohol, which comes from yeast, which grows on the grape naturally, or raisins. That's your only two options. Boy, I love stirring the pot with that one. But, once you start actually learning how to do things, you do things yourself. You go out and go out and harvest grapes yourself, and then try to preserve it, and then, see what you learn things. Some of these things you learn about in life just don't mean anything anymore, because they're a bunch of lies. Anyway, a couple other things I do with my wine. You saw that in the video. You probably saw I was putting Everclear inside of the airlocks. That's to always make sure that everything stays clean. The airlock is like your gate, and you want to make sure that gate, nothing goes through that gate that you don't want to go through. If anything goes through that gate that you don't want to go through, you want it to be disinfected. So I always put Everclear inside the airlock. Also, another thing I do is argon gas. You can go get argon gas. They sell these little containers. When you pick up the can, it feels like it's empty, but it's like really light. But it's a gas that actually sinks to the bottom and protects your wine in the carboy when it's aging against any oxygen contact. And so I always put argon gas, a little bit of squeeze of argon gas down there to give it like a little blanket of protection during the course while it sits. So this is going to do well, I think. At first, if you weren't used to, new wine coming off the carboy, you'd be like, it's very tart, and it's got that yeasty flavor to it. But I look past all that, and I try to look for all the things beyond that of what it will be months and 2 years down the road. And I can pick out a very pleasant wine from this, which will go with a lot of great things. I watched a sommelier on YouTube say, this would go really good with a Philly cheesesteak, the Chambourcin wine grapes. And there was something else I was thinking. I can't remember right now. I'm like, something popped into my head of I know what it was. Dried meats, salamis, sausages. This would go really good with that, I think. I make beef salami and venison salami. We'll be doing that coming up in videos soon. So how we make salami here. We're going to try that again this year. And so what popped into my head that would go good with this would be like dried meats, charcuterie. So I use kosher charcuterie. I don't eat the piggy. The piggy was not meant for eating. It's nature's vacuum cleaner. You don't want to eat the vacuum cleaner. Some of you guys do. It's okay, but I'm not eating the vacuum cleaner. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it already. Hit that like button before you go, even if you don't agree with me drinking the wine or not eating the piggy. I appreciate the likes. I really do. Also, check out our merchandise, teespring.com. Stupid Should Hurt. Still available. Down, our bestseller. Link in the description below. If there was a lot more hurt in this world, there'd be a lot less stupid. So pick up your shirt today. People will love it when you wear it out. It's a great conversation starter. Great gift for friends and family. All right, guys. See you next time in the homestead. Bye. This is Grandma. Grandma survived the Great Depression. She survived the Great Depression because her supply chain was local and she knew how to do stuff. Grandma was smart. Grandma told us to make do with what you got. She also said, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Homesteading is all about self-reliance and declaring ourselves to be independent from the system. We grow our own food, we raise our own animals, and doing these things helps safeguard our families from the unpredictable world that surrounds us. But what about banking? I love being my own power company, but what about being my own bank? Right now, our country is over $30 trillion in debt and rising. The Fed keeps printing money, and the Congress won't stop spending money. Staying attached to the modern banking system and their investment vehicles is like putting all of your eggs in one very, very fragile basket. On one side, you have the threat of inflation and your savings value floating away. And the other side is a possible deflationary stock market collapse, just like what happened in the 1930s. Genesis Gold Group is like a basket holding eggs, and these eggs are impossible to break. History shows us that all paper investments have and will return to their intrinsic value eventually. Zero. But gold, silver, and other precious metals have never, ever been worthless. In every collapse throughout history, people have turned back to precious metals to find monetary value. If you have a 401k, an IRA, or a savings account where you're literally watching the purchasing power inflate away, give Genesis Gold Group a call right now. Today. This instant. They can develop a strategy for you in the days ahead. I can tell you how I raise sheep, I can tell you how I raise chickens, or the best way to grow tomatoes, or how to hook up a solar panel. But Genesis Gold Group is your best shot at safeguarding your hard-earned savings and investments during this increasingly turbulent time in history. The link and phone number is in the description below, or visit their website at genesisgoldgroup.com. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. Oh wait.